What up, though? Luke in studio, and we are back. Major season is wrapped. British Open is over. All we really have to look forward to is the Ryder Cup. I mean, it's so interesting the way major season sort of ends with the PGA Tour, and I guess now including LIV. But we get to this point in the season, and for all other major sports, right, you have this regular season. You have moments throughout the season, obviously, that are sort of the peaks and valleys, but like you play into a playoff moment, and then through that playoff moment, you have a championship moment. Major golf, PGA Tour golf just does not work like that. It feels like the majors are all that really matters, and then we get to this point in the season where playoffs are starting to tick up and things are working towards the end of the season, and it just feels like, I don't know, like, who cares who wins the tour championship? Like, the majors are done. Let's go Ryder Cup. At least that's my perspective. There's definitely some enjoyment, but Scottie's surely just the front runner right now. And I don't know. I guess that will be the interesting part of the playoffs and the championship is, can Scottie cap off this season with a W in the championship? So time will tell. We'll see. That's why they play the game, of course. Just last note on that. Thankfully, they've gotten rid of the sort of handicapping system that they had before. I mean, obviously in previous years, if you were number one in points going into if you were number one in FedEx Cup points going into both the playoffs and the championship, you had a certain amount of stroke lead. I'm blanking on the exact amount because it shouldn't have really mattered. It was always just handicapped in a really weird way, but nonetheless, they're not doing that this year. Everybody's going to start at even par. Thank goodness. I still think that some sort of match play through the playoffs, at least like as we get into the tour championship, like the final rounds of it, would be way more compelling, way more exciting. There's a reason. I know Ryder Cup is team golf. In rant after this, I promise we'll get into British Open. But I know Ryder Cup is team golf, but there's something to say, like, you know, the U.S. Amateur is all match play. Like, there's something to say for stroke play being a part of it. I just think like it would be very compelling if it was match play, if top players had seeding, if Scottie's maybe number one, he's got a first round bye, second round bye, whatever it may be. And I don't know. The storylines, the matchups, the head-to-head, I think it would cause for a way more compelling playoff season than currently stands. I know the players probably disagree with that, as I think I've heard Scottie remark this season that, stroke play is the best test of golf over 72 holes, but yeah, whatever. Major season is over. British Open is wrapped. Scottie made a statement early in the week. I'll play it here.
When you talk about the show goes on, which it does. What would be the longest you've ever celebrated something, and what was the most crushing loss or the time it took to get over one?
I think it's kind of funny. I think. I think I said something after the Byron this year about, like, it feels like you work your whole life to celebrate winning a tournament for like a few minutes. It only lasts a few minutes, that kind of euphoric feeling. And to win the Byron Nelson Championship at home, I literally worked my entire life to become good at golf, to have an opportunity to win that tournament. And you win it, you celebrate, you get to hug my family, my sister's there. It's such an amazing moment. And then it's like, okay, now what are we going to eat for dinner? Life goes on. Is it great to be able to win tournaments and to accomplish the things I have in the game of golf? Yeah. I mean, it brings tears to my eyes just to think about, because it's literally worked my entire life to become good at this sport, and to have that kind of sense of accomplishment, I think is a pretty cool feeling. To get to live out your dreams is very special. But at the end of the day, it's like, I'm not out here to inspire the next generation of golfers. I'm not here to inspire somebody else to be the best player in the world, because what's the point? This is not a fulfilling life. It's fulfilling from the sense of accomplishment, but it's not fulfilling from a sense of like the deepest, places of your heart. There's a lot of people that make it to what they thought was going to fulfill them in life, and then you get there and all of a sudden you get to number one in the world, and then they're like, what's the point? And I really do believe that, because what is the point? You're like, why do I want to win this tournament so bad? That's something that I wrestle with on a daily basis. It's like showing up at the Masters every year. It's like, why do I want to win this golf tournament so badly? Why do I want to win the Open Championship so badly? I don't know, because if I win, it's going to be awesome for about 2 minutes.
And essentially, just to summarize, obviously, he's saying that the deepest aspects of your heart are not fulfilled through golf, which, there's, when he said it in just the news cycle, and even in his post-news conference, he mentioned that, like, you can take 2 minutes of things, and we live in this sort of virality of a world where, that statement was played millions, maybe not billions of times over the last 4 or 5 days. But, you can, if you take the whole of what he's trying to say, I didn't think it was anything that profound or like that much of an outlier. There's been plenty of successful people, plenty of people who have reached a certain level of wealth in their life, people that have won championships, so on and so forth, that have said, like, this is not the end all be all. That yes, you work hard to get here, that you win the chip, that you do the thing, that, the money gets deposited in your bank account. And now what? Life sort of goes on. There is this impermanence that we live with, and that's the reality of it. So it was profound in the context that he's 29 years old. He's the number one golfer in the world, and he's having this dialogue publicly. But the thing that really stuck with me is when he said, I don't do this to inspire the next generation of golfers, because for what? Like this is sort of meaningless to win all these championships, to win, this much. Like there's it's so fleeting. And, I think you could dissect that in many different ways. For him, he said it only, last a couple minutes, and it's sort of what's for dinner. But, again, that's uniquely Scottie's experience, right? It's uniquely how he's gone through his career, how he's won, maybe even how easy it's been at times. He wouldn't put it in that context, how easy it's looked. Rather, I just, that part of it sort of bothered me in the context that, like, is there a larger purpose? Obviously, he has his family, he has married with his wife, he has great parents, an amazing value system that allows him to play with a freedom. He said repeatedly that, he does not derive his value as a human being from golf, that, like, being a good golfer is not a factor on if he's, a good person or not. And I think that allows him to play with a freedom. And when your values are not so invested in the outcome of your quote unquote success, you do have a lot more ability to sort of play with, again, a freedom that I don't think maybe other players have the ability. I think Scottie's superpower is what's between his ears. And it is a little conflicting for me in some of the things that he said. Again, I've had some dialogue with friends over the last couple of days about this. It's like I think about Andre 3000 a lot, right? It's like, man, the world would love another Outkast album, right? But Andre wants to play a flute. And who are we to tell Andre, yo, please go rap 16 over an album's, like, please go make some more rap music. And it's not up to us. Like, it's a remembrance that we're all human in this journey, no matter whether you're the best golfer in the world or one of the best rappers in the world, or just going to work today, to make ends meet. That, it's not up to us to sort of have this expectation on Scottie and what we should expect to him to give back to the world. I do think, though, that there is value in the give back. There is value in purpose. Nipsey Hussle has, like, a quote that he once said, that he said the highest act is to inspire. He said he read that somewhere. I'll have to pull where he maybe grabbed that from. But, naturally, Scottie does do that. I'm sure he's inspired many of a young generation to want to be the best golfers that they can be and maybe make a career out of it. But yeah, that out of his whole statement, and I obviously just posted a snippet, but if you get a chance, I'll share it in the show notes here. But watch the whole 5 minutes. To his point, you could take a snippet of what he said and not get the whole point. But it is very stoic of him as a 29-year-old to be having the conversation publicly. And I mean, big ups to him for being able to just realize like where his values truly lie, and what's really important, that golf is not the end all be all. At the end of the day, it's his day job. He just happens to be really good at it. At the same time, I do think when you are in that position, how great is it when you do leverage that platform to give back, to inspire others, to help others. Not to say he hasn't or won't or doesn't, but that was the only thing that was like, oh, like, you hope that you're making an impact to some degree. And what a privilege it is to sit in a place to say, I don't really care about that. Cause I think about JJ Spawn, for example, who, that moment for him winning the US Open surely lasted longer than 2 minutes. JJ is probably still on a high from his US Open win. How much of that means for people of color that want to play golf. I think about Joe Hooks making the Rocket Mortgage in his hometown of Detroit. It's now the Rocket Classic. I think it's not the Rocket Mortgage Tournament. I just grew up in Michigan, so I know it as the Rocket Mortgage. But, I think about Joe Hooks making the Rocket Classic, qualifying through the John Shippen, how much that means for him, and being, from Detroit, how much that affirms sort of the journey that he's on. So when we look across the board, I mean, I talked about it at length during US Open. I've voiced it a lot here, that the reason why the Tiger effect was so impactful is because he impacted a generation to want to play and participate in this game and make a life out of it. Ben Pennyman, the director of operations of golf at a golf course named Common Ground here in Denver, says very specifically, he is the result. He is the result of the Tiger effect. Him being able to sit in that seat, be the director of operations at the Colorado Golf Association's golf course here in Denver, Colorado, is a big deal, for him. That he is the shift. It's not necessarily about the next black or brown player that's going to win the Masters or a US Open, although that will be nice. That the impact is far and wide, that you can make a career out of a game that we've all, fallen in love with to a certain degree. But ultimately, even after I had a horrible round this morning, it was a reminder that golf will not, fulfill the deepest desires of your heart. And it's a great dialogue to have, and Scottie is surely in an interesting position and a compelling position to start that dialogue and to have that dialogue. Even looking at Rory McIlroy this year, after he won the Masters, we saw this sort of like emotional lull, if you would, right? Like he just was sort of in a weird space in the following months. Obviously didn't play so well at the US Open, didn't do press for a couple tournaments. Like, he was in a weird space, and you can sort of see that emotional high that comes from winning. And, it's not everything. He was definitely much more buoyant for British Open, Roy, that is. And it was really good to see him so joyous and sort of the light back in his eyes during the British Open. Obviously he's back at home, and he said he wanted to enjoy it. But, we're at this kind of F1 type comparison right now with the PGA Tour. It's been a very exciting season for major tournaments, but Scottie winning again and just how dominant he's been, it reminds me of, some of the polarity or lack of polarity in F1, and just his ability to be a front runner. And once he gets up top, just to be able to hold position. This week, just a few stats. It is a statement win. It is his third major on way to the Grand Slam. He's just got that pesky US Open sitting out there now. Maybe we'll see that next year, but he was 103rd in driving accuracy this week. Top 20 in strokes gained off the tee, so he didn't miss bad, but just, to give some context of he didn't drive the ball great this week, but he was second in strokes gained putting. Phil Kenyon, his coach, has done wonders with the man over the last couple of years. Obviously, Rory's comment about him maybe moving to a mallet as well helped. That Odyssey's got him right now. And then first in strokes gained approach. I mean, he was just center of green all week, and it allowed him to be in the right position. And he made some long putts. He made uncharacteristic to me is seeing Scottie drain those 12 or 13 footers, right? Like it's where when he's struggling and when he's not scoring at that high level, that's where he struggles. He just happens to be such a good ball striker at this point that he doesn't have to rely on that. We sort of saw it at Oakmont where, he's scrambling for par at that same distance and just couldn't sort of keep up. The greens were running slower this week. It was remarked all over television that, they were probably running at like a 10.5, 11. They do have to slow them down during the British Open. Just for context, they run at like 12 or 13 on the Stimpmeter during the regular season of the PGA Tour and the championships here in the States. So I do think that helps a little bit too in terms of just speed and, being able to be a little bit more aggressive, especially on the long distance putts. But I mean, what can you say? I almost started this episode. We're 15 minutes in. Obviously, I've got more to talk about than I thought because we'll get to some of the storylines. We'll get brief recap of the major season and look at sort of Ryder Cup and what's coming up next. But for all intent and purpose, it was a pretty straightforward British Open. Like there wasn't that much drama. There wasn't that much mix up at the top. Scottie put himself in position on Saturday on moving day and sat right there and had a sizable lead going into the back nine. It almost seemed he did hit a shot. He was in a bunker, I believe on 15 or 16. And he did try to hit a shot out of the bunker, which I think, if I remember correctly, he took a pitching wedge, maybe a 9-iron out of that and tried to knock it up. And he hit the lip of the bunker. And he was in such a sizable lead at that point that it didn't really matter at all. It just like he ended up getting up and down, I think, for bogey. And I think he birdied the next hole. It just almost felt like he did it to feel something. Like he took he thought he could get out, obviously, but he also took the risk. If things were a little bit closer, he might not have taken that same risk. So again, his ability this week to just be stable and like hit the right shot when it mattered and really just be the best player in the world. It is a sight to see. It's not exciting by any means. It's not Tiger in the context of just the flair and like what you're going to get out of a round from Scottie, because he just doesn't miss that bad. So, Tiger would miss. Tiger's driver would get offline sometimes. Tiger would have to hit some hero shots, and we just don't have to see the same thing from Scottie at all. And it's primarily just because he's not in bad positions round to round. Like he just does not. If he is missing with the driver, if he has that left miss going, it's almost kind of like what's going on. And during the U.S. Open, you could see it. He was yelling on the range, right? like even for him, it's just like it's incomprehensible. Like he's just like, what? I don't even understand why I can't hit this the way I normally hit it. So, cheers to Scottie. It is a hell of a run. We'll see if he can keep that pace and keep up with the big cat over time. That will be the test as we get into another major season next year and he eyes up a U.S. Open perhaps in 2026. Other than that, like there wasn't many like amazing storylines coming from. I watched a lot of golf. I did not wake up. I mean, luckily enough, I live in Mountain Standard Time, so by the time some nights I'm going to bed, golf is already on. But I was waking up 5 o'clock my time and turning on the TV, and it just like there was not much to talk about. Like there was not a lot of drama this week. I mean, Rory's return to the British in Royal Portrush was obviously one of the major stories. And, despite him getting off to a bit of a rough start on Thursday, playing some stable golf on Friday, making a little bit of a push on Saturday, but not enough to keep up with Scottie. His mood was light. He was joyous. He did say going into the week that he really just wanted to enjoy it, that it would be special, obviously, if he could get a win, but that he wanted to just enjoy the experience. I think he knows the type of season he's having. Came in second at the Scottish. Arguably probably should have won. Just got outplayed by a young bull named Chris Goddard. And, Yeah, it was good to see Rory sort of just back in his joyous with that walk. Rory's got like a bounce to his step when he's in a good mood, so to speak, or what I would presume a good mood. So that was good to see. Bryson DeChambeau, Wyndham Clark both shot. I think Bryson shot 78 on Thursday. Wyndham shot 77, and they both had amazing Friday, Saturday, Sunday to end up in the top 10. So it was nice to see some of that fight from both of them. Bryson he plays with such an energy. Almost like Sunday, he was playing like he was just like frustrated. Like, I'm just going to see how far I can push today. Like, everything matters. I don't care if I'm not going to win. And you know what? It's fun to watch. It's cool to see guys not just mail it in on Sunday and still try to just push themselves as hard as they can. There's something to say for that. Chris Gotterup, hailing from New Jersey, Rucker alum, won the Scottish Open, beating the stalwart, the bull that is Rory McIlroy. Comes in third place. I think this is going to be a big story. We'll see how he plays in the coming weeks. He obviously qualified for the British by winning the Scottish Open. I mean, all aspects of his game look really good. He can hit it a mile off the tee. You know, his putting's been fairly solid from what we've seen over the last couple of weeks. Ended up in third place at the British. He has entered the chat for the Ryder Cup conversation. I think he currently sits 22nd. Yeah, currently sits 22nd in Ryder Cup standing. So some decisions to be made here for Captain Keegan Bradley, who also sits in 10th place, which there was some news today that they will give honors to sub-captains to make picks if Keegan does end up being in the mix here in the top 6. All things would point to how well Keegan's playing right now, that he's in the mix, but we'll get to Ryder Cup in a second. The last real thing from the week, I mean, there was a guy named Ryan Peake. He's from Australia, I believe. He was a top junior player, but he was convicted of assault. He spent like 5 years in a high security prison. He played with Phil Mickelson on Thursday. He used to be part of a biker gang. I guess he was convicted a while ago, but when he got out, he turned his life around and dedicated it to golf, and was a bit starstruck, he said, when he played with Phil. Phil signed a glove for him. I don't think Ryan ended up making the cut, but still another one of those cool stories from the week where it's just like, that is the cool thing about national opens. I mean, US Open 2, obviously long stay in golf, is that you have these, mere mortals, these journeymen, these guys that are not, week in, week out professional tour players with a chance to play on Thursday, chance to make a cut, chance to be in the mix. And it's always cool to see that sort of hero's journey, quote unquote, happen. And so, yeah, Ryan Peake, full turnaround of life, gets a chance to play with one of his childhood heroes, Phil Mickelson, on Thursday. And that's the major season. The Masters was such a brilliant way to kick off 2025 major season, right? Obviously in dramatic fashion, completes the Grand Slam. And when we look back at this year, Scottie's 2 wins will surely be remembered. They'll be talked about. He's been the best golfer this year by far. He's statistically played better than Rory. Obviously, Rory's had a good season, winning at Pebble, winning at Players, but Scottie's played better through week. But just completing the slam in the fashion that it was done in, I think that is going to be the thing that's remembered the most from this year. I do think Scottie's play and just overall his standing in the history books, the hallowed halls of golf, will be remembered this year for closing that next chapter of his route to the Grand Slam. JJ Spawn was super inspiring from the US Open. I mean, obviously the dramatics, the delay, the rain delay, he comes back out for his second 9 and just hits some legendary shots down the stretch on some like, what do I have to lose type shit. Like, I have nothing to lose. Like, let's just go for it and execute. They'll be playing his putt on 18 from 63 feet or whatever it was for the rest of time. I mean, legendary course, hardest test in golf, Oakmont, all the things, and just the way he closed that out. That's going to be replayed more than anything I think Scottie did this season. Scottie obviously will be talked about, but that putt in particular, Roy's playoff with Justin Rose, I think these are the things that are just, they're a bit more compelling. They're a bit more, if this was a movie, those would be featured scenes. You know, Scottie's wins would be supporting depending on what the overall plot is. But when we're talking about sort of the high points of the season, the Masters and the US Open take the cake in terms of drama, story, how memorable they are, and how much they matter uniquely to both of those players. Not to say that Scottie getting his PGA Championship and, you know, his British Open don't matter. They surely do. He's one step closer. He's at the same point Tiger was when Tiger won his third major. So, like, you know, everybody's on the high horse right now on Scottie. Time will tell. He surely played lights out thus far, but it was a very fun major season overall, I think, this year, and some great storylines coming out of it. Last but not least this week, short and sweet, we're only 30 minutes and not much to talk about because, again, it's just like, I don't know. So the British Open was, for all intent and purpose, kind of boring. I mean, fun because it's seeing link style golf at this point in the year two is great and enjoyable in the context that we obviously don't just see much like it here in the States for multiple reasons, obviously. But it's really interesting having to watch these guys play a different style of golf and have to, you know, shape the ball a different way, take different clubs off the tee box, and really use a lot of different resources and tools throughout the bag to get around the course and score. You know, it was entertaining in that way, but just in terms of dramatics and what the overall sort of flow of the weekend, you know, Scottie was up top and he was expected to win by the time he was in the lead. It's really that simple. And that is, I think, the most amazing thing about Scottie Scheffler is that it's just not that deep. You know, he plays just a very simple. It's simple, man. It's a simple game. Like, I'm just plodding my way around the course, and I think even mentally for him, he just thinks about the game in a very simple way. So we'll see in 2026 at Shinnecock Hills in Southampton, New York, if he will be able to pull down his Grand Slam, if he will get his fourth major. Ryder Cup, though, next big major for me, as mentioned, the Tour Championship means something. But so in the top six, we've got Scottie Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, JJ Spawn, Russell Henley, Bryson DeChambeau, and Harris English. Keegan Bradley did confirm today that Bryson will be playing. Obviously, we've had some drama over the last 4 years just in terms of our live golfers allowed to play in the Ryder Cup, and the last one they were not. We're beyond that. We have built a bridge and walked over that dramatic water. So Bryson's surely in. He's playing really good golf right now. That's your top six. You know, it's going to be interesting to see who the captain's picks are out of. So there's 12 players on the Ryder Cup for those that do not know. The top six are automatics, and then the captain, Keegan Bradley, who's also playing pretty well this season, won the Travelers Championship. He will have the option to pick 6 other players. So he's surely in the mix. He's sitting at 10th in the rankings. I think Justin Thomas is almost a lock. You know, I'm torn on cats like Brian Harmon. Cantley's obviously been there before. Burns. I don't. Wyndham Clark and how he's thrown fits. Like, is he? You know, he's surely not a locker room guy. Tony Finau sitting at 21st, but you know, from a personality standpoint, and Bethpage, you know, he could surely get it done. I think you start to get beyond Chris Goddard at 22nd, and you know, Brian Campbell's not getting pulled in. Spieth, we love you still, but you're not getting pulled in. You know, Gracerman, he's not getting pulled in. So I do think the other 6 is probably going to come out of the top 20 two. And if I had to pick off the top of my head, I'm taking Goddard. He's from New Jersey. It's in his backyard, so to speak. He's played really well up to this point over the last couple of weeks from what we know of him. He seems to just have this gall about him. And to take down Rory at the Scottish Open, sure. Like, I'm with it. We'll see how he fares over the next couple of weeks here, if he's coming off the high of Scottish and finishing third at the British. Colin scares me for the fact that he's had too many caddies this year. Like, and just like his overall sort of vibes with media. I don't know. Just, he didn't make the cut of the British Open. You know, he otherwise had played some good golf this year. I thought he would actually play better at the US Open, but the putter's been struggling. He is a consistent, he's consistent off the tee. That's the best advantage you're going to get with Colin. But like, the putter scares me, and sort of the caddy sort of roundtable that he's had this year. It's just like the caddy go round is, I don't know. I don't know how I feel. But I mean, he is 8th right now. This is the hard part for how this works from a ranking standpoint, is like, there's 12 that get picked. You would think out of the next 6 positions outside the top 6, let's just roll with who's ever in the top 6, right? But that's not how this works. You're trying to build locker room fit. You're trying to, course fit. We're at Bethpage Black, obviously my favorite golf course, best public golf course, I think, in the world. We've got the US Open and a PGA Championship. Brooks won that PGA Championship there the year 2019. I think that was the year that Tiger won his last Masters. But again, I just, Lucas Glover, like, I do think that Keegan Bradley is gonna have a tough time out of this top 20, top 22, top 23 to pick some guys. I think the next few weeks are really going to show us who's going to be in the mix here. I mean, Brian, if it wasn't for Brian Harman in the damn Waggles, like, I don't know if anybody saw him playing on Friday or Saturday. I just you sometimes want to scream at him, like, yo, hit the ball, bro. Like not another waggle. They did put a waggle counter on him during the British Opens. I'll throw this Ryder Cup. I'd love to hear from the people who you'd pick out of the top 6. Who else would you want out of this top 20, top 23? Maybe I'll post this to Instagram and see what people think. I'm interested to see who will make it out. There's not any clear front runners. Obviously, there's some recency bias with Chris Goddard up and how he played over the last couple of weeks. Justin Thomas too. I just think like he's built for Ryder Cup, just like his energy. And I'd take Keegan Bradley, Sam Burns. So that's 4. Maverick, McNeely, and maybe like Finau, just to have some fun with it. But you can see, I'm not even completely confident on those last 2 picks. Like Tony had a little bit of light shining on him on the British Open. He was kind of in the mix on Friday for a second there. But yeah, I mean, you want players in their best form. Bethpage will be set up if you can drive the ball accurately, if you can obviously stay out of the behemoth of rough. But it's a type of course where it rewards ball strikers. Like, you're not just going to be able to completely overpower it, because if you're off with the driver, there's some places where you can get yourself in some quick trouble. I may or may not be there over the next few weeks before they shut it down for the Ryder Cup. We're going to see if I can get one last loop at good old Bethpage. More to come on that. Tune in for that when that goes live. But otherwise, that is our show for this week. Thanks for tuning in. We are still here. Last major of the year. I've been trying to figure out, sort of cadence with how I want to approach week in, week out. I don't think like that's the vibe for me, is like week in, week out tour reporting. If there's takes that I have, if there's things to talk about, but there's so many good media outlets that are doing week in, week out tournament coverage. No Laying Up being one of my favorites. Fried Egg just continues to crush it. Dan Rappaport does a great job. So I want to be a voice in that room. I want to be a voice in that table. I want to chop game about golf on a weekly basis. But doing a recap of the John Deere, like, is that where I can be most valuable? I'm still figuring it out. And that's kind of the fun part of this, right? Is like, we're growing, we're evolving. This is a living, breathing organism, so to speak. Looped In Studios is, it's 1 week at a time, just trying to figure out, what's best and where the voice best fits. I know, again, that I do want to talk about the professional game. I do know that I want to start to get into more aspects of golf performance. That, I think, is a sweet spot that I don't see enough people that look like me. At least there's a lot of it out there, but like very specific things that I want to talk about, launch monitors and, tools and resources that you can use to become a better golfer, the best golfer that you can be, although it will not fulfill the deepest desires of your heart. Keep that in mind. Thank you, Scottie. And yeah, I'm also always going to want to talk about the fashion, the culture of the community, the things that are happening, as we say, off course right now that are, I think, really shaping the future of the game and hopefully the continued opportunities down the line. It will be interesting to see where golf lands in the next 3 to 5 years. I do think like the goods of the world and Grant Horvats and that whole movement has brought youthful eyes to the game of golf in a very positive way. I think the Roger Steeles in the world and everything that the APGA Tour and, a lot of those aspects, underrated tour, are doing have brought a lot of great eyes to golf in a very positive aspect. Eastside golf, Pluto golf, et cetera, that, there's a lot of good perspectives out there that are sort of shaping this whole ecosystem. What I'm compelled, the question that I want to continue to ask is, as the game continues to evolve, will we see more black and brown play, more diversity on tour? Will we get a chance where some of these cats get a chance to work themselves through Korn Ferry and Q School and make their way into the PGA Tour? And if and when that starts to happen, what does the sponsorship ecosystem look like? What do golf tournaments start to look like? And, how that will continue to evolve. And there's surely an economic case study for that if you look at other sports leagues, the NFL, NBA specifically, totally different because they're team sports and it's, there's this allegiance to teams and how that all functions. But there is an audience that, specifically taps into those sports. And because of that, the sponsorship ecosystem, the business ecosystem around those sports reflect the audience that those brands and sponsors get a chance to speak to. So I think that's the unique place that golf is in right now, is that there's such an opportunity for brands to speak to very specific segments of the golf audience in really creative ways right now. And that translates to more than just golf gear and golf shoes and, equipment and all that. It translates to what beer you're drinking. It could translates to, energy drinks, snacks, snack bars, coffee, shit, what car you drive. Like, there's so many different aspects when you take in the full sort of lifestyle of the audience and all the aspects there. So yeah, I'll continue to put on my creative strategy marketing background hat and be intrigued and compelled and interested in where that aspect of the game is going and a proponent of that shift and that change. That is why Looped In was started, to be a proponent and an evolution of this game that we love, for the love of the game. And yeah, may you find fulfillment both on and off the course, wherever you're playing over the next couple of weeks. I'm off to Scramble that I get to play in every year back home with a bunch of family and friends. And then, yeah, a little bit of golf in California and maybe one last loop at the world famous Bethpage Black before it is all said and done for Ryder Cup. Either or, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. This one was fun, a little bit over time. I was going to try to keep this one to 30 minutes, but we got things to chop game about, you dig. So thanks for tuning in. Looped In Studios, subscribe, like, share, comment, hate on it. Make fun of something. I don't know. Whatever you do, engage with it. I appreciate it. Talk to you soon. Peace.